Hi Year 7 and welcome back. We are in week 5 now and we are looking this week at perspective. So this is your first lesson this week and we are going to start off by finding a definition for the term omniscient. Okay, you've got the pronunciation on there as well. It's a complicated term, but what does it mean? So we're looking at third person narrative this lesson. And what do I mean when I say person? Well, when you're writing, it's important to identify what voice the narration of your story is going to take. So who is it who is telling the story? And there are two main types that authors tend to use: first person narration and third person narration. So first person narration is from the perspective of the character and uses I, we pronouns. And third person is from the perspective of an unknown narrator, so slightly removed from the action, and uses he, she, they pronouns. We do have second person, which uses you, but that is much harder to write in consistently, and so is used a lot less. Okay, what I'd like you to do then is I'd like you to read through each of these two extracts and see if you can work out from whose view we are experiencing the story. So who is it who is our narrator? Is it a first person? Is it a third person narrator? Who is it? Can you find 3 examples from each text which shows how you can work this out? What I'd like you to do for this side is make some notes on the different types of third person narration that there are. Now, third person narration is really, really useful, and so authors use it in lots of different ways. The first type is the third person narrator who is entirely outside of the action, so they are not part of it in any way. An example of that is the boy walked across the road, his head down and his hoodie pulled tight. We are just observing what is happening. The second type is where the narrator may be able to be in multiple places at once and seems to know everything that's going on. And this is the kind of third person narrator, which is often called an omniscient narrator, an all-knowing narrator. So an example of this: the boy walked across the road, his head down and his hoodie pulled tight. Meanwhile, across town, a woman called out to an empty house. So we've got the narrator knowing what's happening both with the boy and with the woman, who is in an entirely different place. Our final one is a third person narrator who might be partially inside the mind of the character. So it's somebody who's almost experiencing a story by looking over their shoulder. An example of this: the boy walked across the road, his head down and his hoodie pulled tight. His mind flitted to his mother's face, discovering his empty bedroom. He pushed it to the back of his head and continued on. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to find which of those do you think you find most effective, and then I'd like you to reread the Harry Potter extract, so extract 2 on the previous slide, and see if you can identify what type of third person narration is being used by J.K. Rowling in that extract. Your final task today is to rewrite these sentences in the third person. So you have got 6 sentences, some of them are in first person, some of them are in second person. Rewrite them so that they are all using third person narration. If you can, and if you're up to the challenge, see if you can alter the sentences so that they fit with each of the types of narration that we looked at before. So see if you can use each type of third person narration at least once.